joining me on the Peerless Boilers hotline. Peerless builds America's best boilers. He was great just a few weeks ago last time he joined us. We have had a great show so far this evening with former New England Patriot Matt Chatham joining us. Well, now let's go to the NFC and break down this giant San Francisco 49ers championship game. And we're now joined by Super Bowl champion with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the pre- and post-game host for the New York Football Giants on WFAN Radio in New York, former offensive lineman Oben, Zach Gelb here, TalkUSA.tv and DARPATV.com. Thank you for joining me, and how you doing this evening?
Zach, my man, it's always a pleasure to be on here with you. How's it going this evening?
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm doing great. Last week, the Saints played the Packers. Out of those two teams, which one was most surprised you that they did not win the football game and advance to the NFC Conference Championship game?
I'm going to say the Saints. You know, I played for Drew Brees. With Drew Brees, I blocked for him actually in San Diego, and you know they live and die by their ability to throw for 400 yards passing. And I think you saw even when they made the plays they're supposed to make, defense did not come through, which led to Greg Williams, you know, running out his welcome in New Orleans. And now that they're packing their bags this past Monday, saying what could have been, and obviously. The way the San Francisco 49ers played, it showed that, you know, football's still played by playing defense, making the throws that you're supposed to make, throwing the ball when you want to throw it, not starting off airing it out. So it was really a good game on both teams. But I think selfishly, with vested interest in wanting the Giants to advance, I think it's a better matchup overall for the Giants because they're a type of a football team. And obviously, you're not going to the Dome again to play in that crowd noise in that environment.
Well, you played with Jim Fossil for many years when you were here with the Giants, and I'm sure you played up against Brian Billick as well. You look at those two coaches, neither of them have a job right now. It's been many years. I had Fossil on this show before. Are you kind of all in a little bit of awe that neither of these two guys have really got looked for head coaching positions yet?
Well, I think it's contingent on a couple of things. I think Fossil, I think it's been known that he kind of screwed himself, you know, during those years in Baltimore when he was the offensive coordinator. He was started off as a consultant, was supposed to be a coordinator, or whatever. Then he got fired, and then he was used almost as a pawn, I think, by the Redskins organization. And he was guaranteed to get that job, and then Joe Gibbs all of a sudden decides he wants to coach again. And all of a sudden, you start to miss your window. And then you start seeing all these other coaches, you know, Saban, Petrino, get jobs out of college, and here's Jim Fossil still there, and Belichick is the same way. Took a team to the Super Bowl and watched, but I think realistically, the culture of what you wanted out of a head coach started to change. They started hiring different kinds of people, and they stopped hiring, you know, some of the recycled, so to speak, former head coaches, your Dan Reeves, your Joe Gibbs, you know, all those guys kind of ran, you know, your Marty Schottenheimers, you know, that era kind of left. So people wanted new, young, bright, 40-year-old offensive defensive coordinators, and that's what you had over the last 5-6 years. So I think Jim Fossil kind of got caught in between that new era of how they hire coaches.
Let's go to the game this week, NFC Conference Championship game. It's really big. Winner goes to the Super Bowl 46 in Indianapolis, and it's supposed to be a complete and utter mess on the field. A ton of rain is expected in San Francisco. Take me from an offensive lineman standpoint. How tough is it when you have poor field conditions to play and execute and do your job?
Well, I think as an offensive lineman, it's the kind of game you want because when you're playing against, you know, a good pass rusher, an edge rusher who's a fast turf type of guy, you want that neutralized. You want that slowed down. So that means it's running games. It's 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8. It's winning that physical battle at the point of attack. Receivers not being able to just run up and down the field, you know, breaking, slipping on routes. But I think for what the Giants' strengths are defensively, it's a little bit of a disadvantage because you're not able to tee off the pass rusher. You don't have the crowd noise as a defensive end, as Jason Pierre-Paul did, you know, for 3 games. Jets, Dallas, and obviously the wild card game. So now you're going to another territory, which the weather will benefit the 49ers, but I think overall the weather conditions will neutralize both teams defensively.
The last time these two teams played, it was this year. I was actually at the Patriots-Jet game, and right before that game got started, I saw Eli Manning's pass get deflected, and the Giants did not beat the San Francisco 49ers. If you could take one thing from that game, if you were Tom Coughlin, and preach it to your team, what would it be? What do the Giants need to improve on so they could punch their ticket to Indianapolis?
Well, I think, number one, they weren't as healthy. I don't think you had Michael Boley that game. Obviously, you didn't have Osi Umenyiora. You didn't have your playmakers, but I think you can look at the game just schematically, how they lined up, some of the things they did against your personnel. But I don't think you can really analyze that game and say, this is how we're going to go playing forward because, I mean, both teams are 6 or 7 weeks better than they were the last time they played each other. So I think it's a little bit of a misnomer, but I think only thing you can get from that game is just how they played against certain looks. But again, the weather is different. The stakes are a lot higher. And I honestly don't think that Alex Smith can play that well 2 weeks in a row. I don't think Vernon Davis will play that well. We'll have those kind of numbers 2 weeks in a row for a lot of reasons. But I think this is where you start to say, if I'm Perry Fuel and I'm the Giants' defense, can we put Alex Smith in a position to start to have some area of doubt and say, look, you're the guy that couldn't get it done for 6 or 7 years. You're the guy that they're trying to replace. I mean, they've got to turn Alex Smith into that type of quarterback. And when you knock him around and you take away some of the bread and butter they do on the ground and really make him have to defend against 4 pass rushers and 7 defenders, that's a different kind of Alex Smith. And that's not what he has to do last week. But to get it done this week, they're going to have to be at their best, bring their A game.
Vernon Davis was spectacular, as you mentioned last week, obviously having that game-winning touchdown catch, and then he pulled the TO and he started to cry on the field, which I thought was a very great moment. He's going to warrant a lot of attention this week. Who do you think guards the tight end from Maryland?
Well, I think a lot of tight ends are used now in that regard, but I think it depends on the area of the field that he's in. And if you look at the zone coverages, you see that, Williams, number 57 linebacker, he's good in coverage in that soft, flat area between the hash and numbers. And obviously Kenny Phillips, you've seen Antrell Roll just be all over the place. So they're going to, I think, use a myriad of looks to stop Vernon Davis. But I think when you stop the running game and Frank Gore, that's really their bread and butter. That's what they're going to do first and second down. And I think if I'm the 49ers, I'm going to say, look, they shut down Mike Turner. They shut down Gonzalez. We couldn't do anything with our tight end. So I think they're going to have to look at that game plan to see how they can do against the Giants defense.
And they also shut down Frank Gore last time they played each other. He only had 4 carries for, I believe, 8 yards. And then you also look at Alex Smith. He had a phenomenal game last week, and I agree with you. I don't think he could play that great 2 weeks in a row, especially going up against the likes of Jason Pierre-Paul, Justin Tuck, and Osi Umenyiora. Do you kind of sense that Alex Smith is playing with a little bit of chip on his shoulder? He was a number 1 draft pick. He was considered a bust, and then this year, bang, he has a new head coach. He's not getting ripped anymore. Jim Harbaugh comes in. He changes the whole taste of that locker room, the whole feel of that locker room. Do you kind of sense a little bit of a chip on his shoulder from number 11?
Well, I think you have to. I think you're talking about a guy who's had 7 offensive coordinators. Now you get a college head coach come out of college and really simplify things and say, you're inheriting a good defense, a good physical team, a good running game. It's more of a let's not wreck the Mercedes. But I think the confidence that he's had from the successes, obviously beating the Saints last week, putting yourself in a position to have the number 2 seed overall, that's kind of added to the confidence of the guy who he was when they drafted him. So I think Alex Smith, in the NFL, if you don't have a chip on your shoulders every single day that you wake up every Sunday, you're not going to be around very long. And I think, obviously, your first-round pick quarterbacks get a little bit longer of a leash because organizations and franchises want those guys to succeed. But I think, for Alex Smith specifically, yeah, he's had a chip on his shoulders, but I think you have to. If he didn't do all this year, I mean, you're definitely looking at maybe a late first rounder going to the 49ers at the quarterback position.
We're talking a Super Bowl champion with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Roman Oben. And Roman, you look at the San Francisco 49ers offensive line, they have a very tough task this week going up against the 3-headed monsters for the Giants pass rush. Break down this matchup for me. This is a big reason why I like the Giants in this game, solely because of those 3 pass rushers and their ability to get to the quarterback and cause some havoc.
Well, first of all, the 49ers have a really good, solid, big, physical offensive line. It's got Staley at left tackle. You got a Pro Bowler inside. You've got, Piscataway, New Jersey's own Anthony Davis at right tackle, so it's going to be a homecoming for him because he grew up a Giants fan. So what better than to beat the team you rooted for, who didn't draft you in the draft? So they've got a pretty good, solid offensive line. But I think one thing that's going to do is going to make those guys see how athletic they are. Like, we know they can run block. You know that what they can do with Frank Gore and get him going and get past the line of scrimmage. I mean, they're almost the offensive line the Giants used to be, 2 or 3 years ago before Eli Manning started lighting up the scoreboard downfield. So, but I think if you neutralize that running game and you start making Alex Smith look downfield, in addition to keeping one eye on that three-headed monster in that pass rush, it's going to be a longer day for that offensive line. So they're going to have their hands full this Sunday afternoon.
Well, now let's transition gears and let's go to the offense. Eli Manning has been spectacular, hooking up with Victor Cruz and Hakeem Nicks all year long, and you've seen a lot of teams double-team Victor Cruz in the playoffs, and that just made Hakeem Nicks just elevate his game and take it to the next level. Obviously, last week at the Hail Mary catch and all that great stuff. If you were the San Francisco 49ers, who do you double this week? Victor Cruz and the salsa dance or Hakeem Nicks?
Well, you can't double both of them because and I think people have been taking away Victor Cruz the last two weeks. I mean, he still had some admirable games. People have been taking away Victor Cruz, and look at the numbers that Hakeem Nicks has had. Obviously, the Hail Mary was huge. I mean, that couldn't happen, 9 out of 10 times. But it was good for them. It was a good momentum boost going to that halftime with that lead. But you really have to play solid across. But one thing that the 49ers do extremely well, or one thing they do extremely well, is they tackle well. So a lot of those big plays that you saw, Victor Cruz making a 99-yard against the Jets, last week Hakeem Nicks, he bounced off a guy, runs 60 yards. You're not going to see that on Sunday. So they're going to have to earn everything they get. They might have to beat him deep, downfield, but you're not going to see a lot of missed tackles from that secondary because the 49ers are very, very solid as far as how they tackle the ball carrier.
Yeah, you look at these linebackers, they're phenomenal. Patrick Willis, one of the best linebackers in the league. And the Giants' running game has been so prolific so far this course of the season with Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw. But you look at the San Francisco 49ers defense, they don't allow too many rushing touchdowns. Up until that Harbaugh game, they allowed no rushing touchdowns on the year. This team is pretty impressive what they do on the defensive side of the ball. How do you like these Giants backs this week?
Well, again, to reiterate your point, they do well defensively. They're really solid. One thing, again, they're good tacklers. They're real good inside. Justin Smith has been playing phenomenal. Defense line, Willis is good. So for any defense to be good, you need to be solid at all three levels. That's your D-line, your linebackers, and your secondary. So, and again, and I don't know if Jim Harbaugh's ever admitted this, but I think Mike Singletary really left them a good, tough physical team, and I think he's reaping the benefits of some things that Mike Singletary started these last 3 years or so, but, obviously didn't get to finish the job. But again, Harbaugh's done a good job just invoking that identity and that belief system of what they can do. But the 49ers are a solid football team across the board, but overall, they're a better matchup for the Giants than any team in these playoffs.
Giants pre- and post-host on WFAN Radio. Former NFL player Roman Oben joins us. Roman, 2 more questions right before we let you run. I want your offensive lineman expertise on this one. Aldon Smith, he's been phenomenal this year. If you were going up against him, how would you try to contain him?
Well, you can contain him hopefully by running the ball well, so you get some third and shorts, manageable third downs. But, again, crowd noise is different. You got to set up the ball quickly. You got to stretch the pocket. He's a good athlete, so he's going to come all the way around the corner. He's going to keep running. Just like Jacob Pierre-Paul, so you got to block him for a longer period of time, and you got to make sure you get your hands on him so you can control him a little bit. So I was a small offensive lineman and had better athletic ability, so I did better against Javon Kearses and guys like that. But Aldon Smith, he's phenomenal. I mean, he's a great pass rusher. But yeah, you've got to keep your hands on him. You got to block him all the way around because he's got that second effort, and that's how he gets a lot of his sacks.
Tell my audience real quick right before we let you go about your charity, the Roman Oben charity.
Roman Oben Foundation website, romanoben.com. It just shows all the stuff I've done in the community for years in Africa, in Haiti with my wife. Also some reading challenges that we've done for different school districts. We're starting up again this year to do some things in the tri-state area. And obviously, you can follow me on Twitter. I always update everything. R_OBEN. It's at R_OBEN on Twitter.
And also, who do you think gets to the Super Bowl this year? Give me your NFC and AFC representatives in Indianapolis.
Well, I want to say Giants-Ravens, a rematch of the 2000 Super Bowl, and hopefully Giants come up victorious this time. Maybe do to Baltimore what the Ravens did to them in 2000. And obviously with Joe Flacco, he's been playing very consistent. I think he plays well every other game, so I think he plays well this game, and I don't think he does well in the Super Bowl if he faces the Giants.
Roman, you're killing me. I'm a Patriot fan. How can you not pick my Patriots team? But you are going to be in Indianapolis, and so will I be, so I expect to see you at Radio Row. And if you thought any of those defensive linemen that you went up against were tough, wait till you have to go up against me.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. You probably have to use that speed rush since you're a little smaller than I am, so I'll look forward to it.
Roman, thanks so much. I appreciate the time. Enjoy the game this week, and I'll see you in Indianapolis.
All right. Thanks again, Zach.